Everyone who's spent any amount of time on YouTube is familiar with the phrase like and subscribe. It's used so frequently that it's almost lost meaning. If it's something we're so familiar with, does it even matter? Should I be telling my audience to like and subscribe? Should I be telling them to do anything at all? Does it annoy them? What can I ask my audience to do, and when can I ask it of them? The industry term we use is a call to action. When it comes to building an audience on YouTube, our audience doing certain things benefits our video. If they like and comment, that shows engagement. If they share it with their friends, that's more people in the potential audience. If they subscribe, they're more likely to see your videos in the future. Not all of these actions are created equal, but they all help in some way. That said, if you spent a bunch of time on the platform, you've probably found at least one channel where this got a little bit annoying. People just asked a little too much of you. And there is kind of a fine line between asking your audience member for a favor and getting in the way of the video that they actually came here to see.
That's our thumbnails.
This can be a little bit of a judgment call because maybe you're looking for a specific thing right now. So let's go through a bunch of these and just talk about what benefit they provide. Likes and comments are really common forms of engagement. This tells YouTube that these audience members were interested enough in the video to take some additional action. Audience members that engage with a video are much more likely to see your next video when you uploaded it because they demonstrated that not only did they watch it, but like they interacted with it. Comments tend to be the stronger engagement action, but it's also harder to get people to do because they actually need to think of something to say and then type it out and send it as opposed to just clicking a button. Especially when we get onto mobile phone where you have a phone keyboard and not a full keyboard, this is a bigger ask. For that reason, likes are pretty easy to ask in any situation. If you're going to ask for comments, we generally recommend doing it by providing a discussion question. Don't just ask people to comment on the video, ask them to comment on some certain thing. So if you have a top 10 list, ask them which is their favorite, or ask them if there's one we left off the list. This way you can ask your audience member to say something without putting the onus on them to come up with interesting discussion all by themselves. You put in a little bit of the work ahead of time. Subscriptions are also a form of engagement, but they're more about an audience member saying that they want to see more videos like this. You like this channel enough to subscribe to it. You want to see it in your subscriber feed, which actually most people don't look at, but that's kind of besides the point. Because YouTube uses the videos you've watched recently as a good indicator of what you're likely to watch on your main feed, subscriptions aren't as important as you might think. They are at least at some level a vanity metric. It's not necessarily changing who gets recommended your videos, but it does make your channel look more prestigious. And that might sound really shallow, but it does have impact. If I'm trying to get sponsors for my channel, my subscription number is a really good metric to show them, to show that I'm popular, that I'm worth the brand deal. It's way easier to say I have 1 million subscribers than to try and explain to a brand representative,
actually my monthly views are here, and my CTR is this, and my AVD is this.
It's just a lot of information to put on somebody. Also, a high subscription number does add an air of legitimacy to a channel. It tends to show that it's been around for a while and that it's uploading fairly consistently, and that it hasn't had just like one-off success. If I uploaded the same video on a 0 subscriber channel and a 1 million subscriber channel, even if you got recommended them, you could theoretically get recommended either of them, but if you're thinking about subscribing or kind of getting involved in the community, having 1 million subscribers just makes you feel established. It makes it feel like this is going to be more consistent. Okay, so I've mentioned that subscriptions don't necessarily impact what shows up on your main feed, and this is where people start to talk about the notification bell. And honestly, I just haven't seen a tremendous amount of return on this. It's great when people do it, and it does help them see your videos, but it's just hard to move that needle. It will give a certain percentage of your viewers a better chance of seeing that your video went live, but it's not nearly as important as programming and good thumbnails and good scheduling to actually getting your video watched. So for that reason, I really don't spend a lot of time on it. So those are the calls to action that you hear a lot. You'll hear those all the time. There's 2 more I'd like to touch on though. One is to check out some external website, whether that's your own personal website or some other social media of yours. This is kind of a tricky one. Anytime you link users away from YouTube, YouTube's going to mark a session end. Somebody stopped watching YouTube after they watched your video. If YouTube marks that people stop watching YouTube after they watch your video, that's not great for them. They're ideally looking to promote videos that keep people on the platform as long as possible. This creates better engagement metrics for them, and it makes their ability to sell advertisements much better. It also shows that people use the platform, and it gives it greater legitimacy when it comes to creating higher quality programming. That said, we might take an algorithmic hit if we're leading people away from the website, but if we're linking them to something like our own merch site, the returns could very well be worth it. This is always going to be a judgment call based on what you're doing. If you're a business and you have a merch site and you can reasonably predict that you'll get X revenue from people going to your website, that's probably going to be your ad revenue. And the last thing we can ask people to do that's probably the most important is to watch another video. This is kind of the opposite of linking somebody to an external website. If I keep them within the YouTube platform, I'm showing YouTube that people who watch my video tend to stay on the platform longer, which is good for YouTube. They're going to be much happier promoting that video. Probably shows that I have not only a long watch time, but that my videos also create a long session time. Session time isn't a metric we can really track, but it is valuable. And since watching videos is what encourages YouTube to show viewers more of our videos, this is easily the most valuable thing we can do. But there are a few more restrictions on how we can do that and how it's best to do that. So let's talk about the best ways to make a call to action. So when it comes to the best ways to do call to action, the first question is where? And there's really only two answers: the front of the video and the end of the video. It doesn't have to be one or the other, but those are probably the two most reasonable places to put them. The front of the video captures the most people possible, and the end of the video captures the people that are the most dedicated and most likely to follow up on a call to action. When it comes to the front of the video, there's a couple things to keep in mind. First, none of the calls to action we should do should be ones that take us away from the video page. People just got to the video, they're here to watch the video. We don't want to take them out of the watching experience when they just opted into it. This is why like and subscribe are the ones you see up front, is because they're very easy to do even from a mobile interface without interrupting the video watching experience. Because this is the front of the video, people are still making the decision about whether or not they want to continue watching all the way through. Which means if you do a particularly annoying call to action here, it could have serious ramifications over your average view duration and retention. So in addition to not wanting to interrupt the actual video watching experience, we want to get out of the way as quickly as possible. If you are spending more than a few seconds on this call to action, you are doing it wrong. And because you need to go through it so fast, we would recommend sticking to just one call to action here. Hey, be sure to leave a like. Hey, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. That's all you need to do. Get in, say what you need to say, get out of the way. You also don't want this to be the first thing you say. Make this a little bit like TV with a cold open. You're gonna start with some comments, you're gonna talk about what the video's about, and then hey, before we get into it, leave a like, move on. Give at least a little bit of your value proposition up front before you ask something of an audience. You need to give them something before you can expect to get something in return. There is a caveat where you can take a little bit longer to do a small call to action, and that's something like a like drive. So you'll see on some channels, if this video gets 5,000 likes, I'm gonna throw a pie in my face. Some people will try and make this extra unobtrusive by making it solely a visual call to action. So they'll have a little thing down here that says subscribe. Totally fine, and it does stay out of the way, but this is also much less likely to work. We've found over and over again that having your host or the voice associated with your channel give a verbal call to action tends to be the strongest. So from a success rate standpoint, we would still recommend having a verbal call to action, provided that your channel does any kind of verbal content to begin with. So the ending is the place that we can make more interesting calls to action. But it's also tricky because once your video is obviously over, people start to leave immediately. So when we do these calls to action, we still want to be really quick and really efficient with it. Also, we need to be really sure that we don't end the video before we get to our calls to action. This is something that you'll see people do. There are a certain set of phrases on YouTube that as soon as you say them, your audience disappears. I'm trying to explain those phrases without accidentally saying them because seriously, they are retention poison. If I express gratitude for the fact that you have observed my video, also known as saying thank you for watching, I have said my video is over. I have delivered on my value proposition. There is going to be no more to my value proposition. This immediately gets people scrolling to the next video. To be clear, it's totally cool to thank your audience for watching, but we need the next few seconds to be planned out. Because I don't have a lot of time, this outro needs to happen within the last 20 seconds of the video because that's when I'm allowed to use end screens. End screens are a fantastic resource for your calls to action. They give you clickable elements that can send people to other videos, can send it to subscribe, or even to an external site if you have it approved. So we're going to have an outro that starts, and then we have no more than 20 seconds to say everything that we need to say, and really we have about 6, because other than that, people are gone. So to make the most of it, we're going to pick one primary call to action. Because it's so valuable, usually my first call to action is going to be to another video. If you've watched my videos where I talk about channels that I think are really cool, I'm usually encouraging people to go check out those other channels. In a strict sense, it would be better to watch our videos, but it feels as a courtesy if I'm going to talk about somebody that I bump it over to them. That's just kind of a nice thing to do. Ideally, this first call to action is always to another video, generally one of your own. And unless I have a really good reason, no matter what that first call call to action is, I want it to stay on YouTube.
Monster thumbnail.
Again, we just don't want to create session ends if we don't have to. Because that's our first call to action, people that are most inclined to do us a favor are going to click on that one, or they're going to not do anything and they're already looking onto the search. So what we do from this point is a lot more flexible. I can point to another video, although it's very unlikely if they went for the first video that they're going to go for the second. I can re-up liking and subscribing and commenting as just general engagement metrics, and that's totally fine. Or I can go to an external site. This is another great place to plug merch if you have it. That said, while this is pretty flexible and you can theoretically do any number of call to actions that you can fit vocally in 20 seconds, you can only have 4 end screen elements, and that usually tends to clutter it quite a bit. First one, video. Second one, maybe a channel action subscribe button. You can sometimes fit in a third element depending on how you've set up your end screen layout, but those first 2 are much more important. The third one is just kind of gravy. And once you have that set up, you're pretty much done. You can say more if you have time. It's likely not going to matter. Some people put bloopers here just because it's a fun little thing to end the video on, and I suppose if you put some kind of value add at the very, very end, it encourages your core fans to stick around to the very, very last second, but it's not super important. So now that I've told you the best way to do calls to action, let's practice what I preach. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out some of our other great videos on audience development by clicking on the end screen right here. And if you like this video, be sure to leave it a like. It helps us out and it lets us know that you want to see more videos like this. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more audience development videos every week. See you next time.
Monster thumbnails.